morning. Welcome to Chalice Unitarian Universalist Congregation. We are a community of diverse beliefs and experiences, nurturing the liberal religious spirit and united by our desire to grow in love and in service. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever your life's journey, you are welcome here. Whether you gather with us every Sunday, once or twice a year, or are here this morning for the first time, we are glad you are here. I'm Reverend Sharon Wiley, Chalice's minister. Our worship musician this morning is Justin Gray, and our song leader is Maria Pia Duffy Foltz. Welcome to this online worship service. If you are new to online worship, let me orient you a little bit to this experience. Whether you have a microphone on your computer or not, whether you have a camera or not, we cannot see or hear you during this time together. So you can't unmute yourself. You can't suddenly become visible. So you don't need to worry that we hear what you're saying or see what you're doing. We hope you are relaxed and comfortable wherever you are. If you get a notice that pops up during the service that says internet unstable, that means that your internet is unstable. If that happens, you might want to turn off any other devices you have that are using Wi-Fi and see if that can help stabilize your connection. If my internet becomes unstable, or if Zoom crashes, that hasn't happened to us, knock on wood, that's the thing that could disrupt our worship. Those are the things. And, you know, if that happens, that's just how it is. So try not to be too stressed. Sit tight. If you were to be kicked out of this format, just log back in and we'll see if we can get back on track. So imagine me standing at the door of our chapel on our Chalice campus, greeting you as you arrive on Sunday morning. Since I can't hug you myself, please go ahead and give yourselves a hug. If you have other people with you, you might hug them too. Say good morning. It's good to be together. Now, on your menu, for most of you, it will be at the bottom of your Zoom window. There's a button that says chat. Chat is where those of us who want to talk to each other during the service. So people have been saying hello to each other. That's wonderful. I'm going to post in the chat a link to our online connection card. Oh, so I was posting that reminder. There we go. So if you're new to the congregation and you would like to receive our email announcements, you can fill out this online connection card to get onto our email list. Getting our emails will give you Zoom information for our other events and activities that happen during the week. We don't post those things publicly on our website. Zoom bombers are out there and we want to be careful. If you're a regular attendee at Chalice and you have a question you would like to ask, or especially if you have any change in contact information, your email or your physical address, you can also use that online connection card just like you would when we used our hard copy connection cards. Let me also provide my email address. There we go. If you would like to submit a prayer request to me or just have any confidential information you'd like me to know, these are things you can email me and I'll read them privately after the service. So some of our congregants love the chat function and use it throughout the service, which you're welcome to do. Some congregants don't like the chat and find it distracting. You can close the chat if it's popped open on your screen, and if it's not on your screen, you can also open it. So again, on that menu where it says chat, you just click on that button and that opens and closes the chat box. That's how you control that. Also be sure if you are going to post that you use that little blue drop down menu to select all panelists and attendees so everyone can see what you're sharing. I'm the only panelist, so if you just post to panelists, it only comes to me and I probably won't see it during the service. So yeah, make sure you use that menu. So let's take a breath together. We invited the Metzger Keys to light our chalice this morning. Happy Father's Day to the fathers in our congregation. Happy summer solstice to all of us. Our service today is a reflection on and a celebration of liberation. June is Pride Month, and additionally, the Black Lives Matter protests and movement are an inspiration this morning. The words of our call to worship come from the Reverend Gretchen Haley. This is a call for all the people longing for liberation, all who wander too often in the desert, not sure of the way forward, too often thirsty and afraid, looking for water. Here is a call to collect ourselves and the hopes we have tucked away, set aside too often for another day. Here we are building a welcome table that never finds its end. A river that cannot run dry. The waters are always rapid, and then still, steady, and then waterfalls. There is nothing tidy or perfect possible in this journey. Abundant life is messy and glorious, filled with risk. This is a call for the diving in with all the dreams of your heart. The struggles, the silliness, the fear, the hunger, the courage, the community, the love. Here we remember the time for joy is always now. Let us worship together. Please join in singing.
Today will be a joyful day. Enter,
joy you would like to share with the community this morning, now is the time to share that in the chat box. We won't share these out loud, but please feel free to respond to each other in the chat. This is our time for joys. We will share sorrows a bit later on. We'll listen to some piano music, and if you have a candle in your own home that you would like to light for joys, this is the time. May our joys be multiplied. May we act to extend our warmth to all who are rejoicing in our wider world. And now, a story.
Our story is called The Secret Message, based on a poem by Rumi. It's written by Mina Javaherben and illustrated by Bruce Watley. Many years ago, a wealthy Persian merchant kept a parrot from India in his shop at the bazaar. The bird, who once flew free in the Indian forests, now lived in a small cage. Colorful tiles covered the shop's domed ceilings and walls, but the parrot preferred the beauty of the forest. All day the bird sang of longing, but the merchant would not let him go, because the parrot could sing and talk, and his bright feathers attracted customers to the shop. The parrot had helped the merchant become rich and famous. One day a group of wealthy traders walked by. Their sparkling cloaks reminded the parrot of the forest stars, and he called out to them. Enchanted by the bird, the traders entered the shop. Once inside, they purchased all the merchant's goods. The merchant rewarded the parrot with a large golden cage. That night, at home, the merchant announced, "I'm going to India to buy more goods for my shop." Before he left on his trip, the merchant asked the parrot if he wanted anything from the place that had been his home. An exotic flower or a silver cup, perhaps? "I don't want any gifts," the parrot said with a sigh. "But when you pass through the forest and see other parrots like me flying free, tell them I live far away. Tell them I miss flying with them. I miss their sweet voices. I miss the smell of the trees." The merchant interrupted. "But parrot, you live inside this wonderful golden cage with 3 swings." "You're right," said the parrot. "Tell them about this cage." "I will," said the merchant. On the Silk Road, the caravan trudged over dry sand dunes, passed through steep green valleys, and braved dangerously narrow mountain paths. After a long journey, the travelers crossed the Indus River. At the city of Gilgit, they saw temple dancers, monkeys, elephants, and cows enjoying a river festival. When they noticed the yogis, who stayed calm in twisted poses, they knew they had arrived in India. On the way back to Persia, the merchant's caravan passed through a thick tropical forest. He heard voices like his parrots. He saw beautiful birds like his, flying free among the trees. "Stop the caravan," ordered the merchant. He stepped down and asked the birds to gather around. "I have a message from your friend," he said. The parrots sat on twisted banyan tree branches and listened. "Far away from India, I own a parrot that looks like you. He sent a message. He remembers flying in the forest, hearing your sweet voices and smelling the trees. He lives inside a beautiful cage that I bought for him. It has 3 golden swings inside." The birds listened carefully. Suddenly, one by one, they fell off the branches with their backs on the ground and their feet in the air. Their bodies lay still under the shadow of the banyan canopy. The shocked merchant could not believe his eyes. The parrot stayed stiff on the ground. After a while, the merchant ordered his caravan to move on. Once he was back in Persia and back at his shop, the merchant busied himself with storing the new goods. He avoided the parrot. One quiet afternoon, the parrot asked, "Merchant, when you were in India, did you deliver my message?" "Parrot, something bad happened in the forest. I don't wish to talk about it." "For years I have sung for you in a cage," said the parrot. "I didn't ask for jewels or spices. I only asked you to deliver a message for me. Is this how you repay me?" "Well, if you insist, I will tell you. I did indeed deliver your message to the birds. They listened, and then suddenly They all fell off the tree branches, not one breathing a single breath. The parrot listened. Then, as soon as the merchant stopped talking, he fell off his golden swing with his feet pointing up to the sky. Not a single breath came out of him. The merchant ran to the cage. "What have I done?" he cried. "Have I caused your death?" The parrot stayed still at the bottom of the cage. The merchant knew that this parrot would never bring another customer to his shop. He took the stiff bird out of the cage and placed him on the counting table. In an instant, the parrot fluttered his wings and soared up to the shop's domed ceiling. "You're alive," the merchant said. "More alive than ever, merchant, thanks to the message from my friends in India." Then the parrot flew away through the hole in the domed ceiling and all the way to India to fly free among his friends. The end.
June is LGBT, lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans Pride Month. It's in June to commemorate the Stonewall riots that began on June 28, 1969. The first gay pride marches in the United States were held the following year. June is also a commemorative month for Black people in the United States, with June 19th, called Juneteenth, celebrating the emancipation of enslaved people in the United States. There is a subtle difference between freedom and liberation. Freedom is the state of being unfettered, unconstrained. Liberation is the state of being unfettered from, unconstrained by. To liberate is to set someone free. To be liberated is to be freed. It's important to know that Juneteenth is not the anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation. That document went into effect on January 1st, 1863. But it wasn't until over 2 years later, on June 19th, 1865, that enslaved people in Texas learned that slavery had been outlawed for over 2 years. June 19th quickly became a holiday for Black people in Texas, a celebration of their liberation from bondage, and has since then become celebrated throughout the United States. Juneteenth is also called Freedom Day, Jubilee Day, Emancipation Day, and yes, Liberation Day. This morning, I want to suggest that liberation is something all of us are seeking all our lives long. That suggestion brings with it this assumption that we are all oppressed in different ways and that we need liberation from that oppression. All of the isms of the world hurt us. And this is the idea that might be new to some of us this morning, that oppressions hurt the oppressors as well as the oppressed. Not equally, it's not the same oppression, but systems of oppression hurt all of us. We are all damaged and hurt by systems that limit and control. And we are none of us free until all of us are free. Sexism hurts people of all genders. The same system that would keep women's lives small and limited likewise keeps men's lives small and limited. And of course, all the different gender variations on that spectrum. Racism hurts people of all races and ethnicities. The same system that seeks to crush and punish Black people relies on keeping white people ignorant and fearful. Homophobia, fat phobia, ableism, ageism, these limit all of us. We are so much more than these small categories. As we continue to live in a time of tumult, change, and danger, let this morning be a celebration of what we are fighting for, that what we are fighting for is worth fighting for. Freedom, democracy, civil rights, human rights, liberation. Much is at stake. My assertion is that it is a blessing to have such important work to do.
You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still like dust, I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? Just because I walk as if I have oil wells pumping in my living room. Just like moons and like suns with the certainty of tides, just like hope springing high, still I rise. Did you want to see me broken, bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries? Does my sassiness upset you? Don't take it so hard just because I laugh, as if I have gold mines digging in my own backyard. You can shoot me with your words, you can cut me with your lies, you can kill me with your hatefulness, but just like life, I rise. Does my sexiness offend you? Oh. Does it come as a surprise that I dance as if I have diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of the huts of history's shame I rise. Up from a past rooted in pain I rise. A black ocean leaping and wide, welling and swelling and bearing in the tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear I rise. Into a daybreak miraculously clear I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the hope and the dream of the slave. And so, wow. There I go.
When I grew up, I didn't know I was gay because there was no word. I never heard of the word.
I felt different when I was young. I always felt girly. I started to dress a lot of times indoors.
I thought I was the only one. Like, why did I have a kind of a weakness?
I was in hospital. I just said to the doctor I couldn't live without affection. And he said to me, what right have you to affection? It was a hard time.
It was tough. My confirmation, you had to wear a dress. I hated it. I knew then, like, definitely there is something wrong with you, Olive. Something mental or physically wrong with you. And I was 12 years of age.
Dancing in the streets for the young and beautiful. And should be left to the young and beautiful.
I'm here today to invite someone very special with me to Pride.
They're the ones that fought for our right to be who we are.
I've never been to Dublin Pride.
Never, not once.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
How are you?
I'm here today to ask you if you will come to Dublin Pride with me.
On a big Pride bus, yeah?
Oh.
On the bus, yeah.
I was thinking about it.
I don't know.
You don't know?
No.
Are you sure you want me to go up there? Like, you do know what I'm like.
Yes, okay.
Thank you for asking me.
There we go.
Feather boa.
Oh, perfect.
Oh my goodness!
You look brilliant.
Oh wow! Oh my goodness!
Happy Pride.
You shouldn't look on life as a journey. You should look on it as a dance. I was just thinking about that this morning, and I thought it has to be a journey until you actually shed the loads that you're carrying, and then you can dance.
Next up, Dublin Pride.
There is a lot of light. Thank God for that.
I'm proud of who I am.
I never expected anything like this in my life. 30 years ago, I couldn't do that. Couldn't. Just out now, and I'm proud.
My friend Terrence, after the Rodney King verdict, we had all these conversations because he's got a poster, or had a poster, in his room of all these black leaders. I was 18, I'd already been a social justice activist for a few years. You know, I was down for the revolution. I didn't know who any of these black leaders were except Dr. King, and I had the most narrow, whitewashed, Reagan era right-wing version of Dr. King. Basically a Dr. King that supports a colorblind worldview. And I was like, oh, there's Malcolm X. I've never seen a picture of him, but I think he hates white people. And then I'd ask Terrence, I was like, who are these people? He'd say, well, this is Ida B. Wells, who led the anti-lynching campaign and infused a feminist and black radical tradition to create the anti-lynching campaign. This is Ella Baker, who is really the midwife of the civil rights movement with helping to support Dr. King, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. She revolutionized community organizing. Here's Septima Clark, who was the architect of the citizenship schools that brought together basic democratic voting registration with a profound black freedom vision of transforming power in the society through an empowered electorate that would transform governance. Next week, I'd come back and be like, so who are these people again? And eventually, Terrence, very gracious, he said, look, I'm not going to keep telling you about who these black leaders are because you feel really guilty about the Rodney King verdict and about our friendship, and you're trying to show me that you care about black people. I'm not telling you about W.E.B. Du Bois and Langston Hughes because I want you to know something about black people so that when Black History Month comes around, you've got something to contribute. I'm not telling you who these people are because I want you to know about my leaders. I am telling you about who these people are because they are your leaders. And then he said something that transformed my life. He said, this is one of the ways that white supremacy hurts white people. And I was like, wait, what? And I didn't say it, but in my head I was like, but racism's a black problem. He said one of the ways that white supremacy hurts you as a white person is it raises you to both embrace unconsciously a white privileged superiority of thinking of yourself as knowing everything better than everyone else, and so therefore you are forever the one to tell everyone else what's going on and you have nothing to learn, while simultaneously white supremacy on the daily raises you to be malnourished of the most important democratic movements, democratic values, liberatory visions and possibilities spoken through poetry, literature, social justice movements of people of color, White supremacy raises white people to be structurally stupid about liberation while superior and feeling forever dominant within this hierarchy that is also killing you too.
Let's join in singing. We shared our joys earlier in the service, and now it's time for our sorrows. If you have a sorrow you would like to share with the community this morning, you can share it in the chat. These won't be shared out loud, but please feel free to respond to each other in the chat. This is the time for sorrows. We'll listen to some piano music, and if you have a candle in your home that you would like to light for sorrow, this is the time. May our sorrows be lessened. May our burdens be lightened. In sorrow and challenge, may we know ourselves always held and never alone. May we act to extend our warmth to all who are hurting in our wider world. Chalice is a robust community of people with diverse gifts and interests. We have many groups and activities that meet regularly. Here is an update about our religious education program for children.
I'd like to introduce myself to any new visitors today. I'm Chris O'Connor, and I'm the Director of Family Ministries at Chalice. And for those who attend regularly, you're probably thinking, I knew her from somewhere. I wonder what she's been up to. Well, we have almost seamlessly gone from in-person RE classes to a Zoom format. And now some parents will share some information and their thoughts about the RE program the last few months.
My name is Julie Laux, and I have two kids, Caleb, age 10, and Emily, age 8, who have been participating regularly in Chalice RE since the beginning of quarantine. They've been meeting weekly with Miss Chris in small groups with probably usually about 3 to 5 other kids, and doing a range of things from hearing stories to just talking about their days and sharing ideas on how to cope during this time, and producing some really nice artwork. This is one of my favorite pieces that my daughter Emily, age 8, came up with, and it was a lesson not only designed to help them kind of learn, better skills at color blending, but it was also to help them come up with a strong message that might give them a sense of resilience or strength to approach life during this time. So this one says, I am brave, and it has a picture of a horse kind of running with his tail out, and I just love this. I have it up on my refrigerator it just makes me feel happy, and knowing that my children would look forward each week to being part of these small groups. And really, I felt like every week after communing with their friends and maybe producing some artwork or listening to some targeted stories, they would really kind of emerge just kind of calm and reflective and just happier. So I really appreciate all that Chalice RE has done for my children during this time, and our family. Thank you.
Hi. Our family is really grateful that Chalice has continued RE classes online at a time when we're not able to meet together in person. My girls have really enjoyed the activities, especially the painting and stories. And we found that the RE classes have been a way to strengthen our ties to Chalice and the community, even at a time where we can't see each other in person.
I made this at Chalice RE, and I made this at Chalice, and I also made this at Chalice. My favorite part of the RE class was reading the story. We also sometimes have snacks, and I'm doing good, and bye. What we do in the class is we check in, we see how everyone's doing, and then we listen to a story, and we do sometimes artwork, sometimes we just talk about it, and other times and at the end, sometimes we have a snack, and then that's the time that we can chat and share what's been going on.
Chalice is more than a place. We're a community of people. When you hear about activities such as children's religious education, then you know this is part of who we are. We are so blessed to have Chris as our Director of Family Ministries. The Sunday offering is an expression of the generosity that makes our congregational life possible. Today is our monthly Social Justice Sunday, when we give to an organization outside Chalice. In recognition not only of the events of the past month, but of the centuries of racial inequality in this country, our offering today will go to support Black Lives Matter. Ooh, sorry about that. This organization was started in 2013 by 3 young Black women responding to the pain and anger many of us felt when a white man was acquitted of the murder of a young Black man, Trayvon Martin. Over time, Black Lives Matter seemed to be slowed, and Google searches on the subject waned. The Economist of May 23rd, 2020, just 1 month ago, suggested that public interest in Black Lives Matter had drifted and wondered if the movement had lost its way. Today, one very short and very long month later, polls in the US suggest that around 2/3 of the country support Black Lives Matter. Like a flower bulb lying under the ground, gathering strength to push its way up, the organization has burst forth, a tribute to some sense of justice that exists as part of being human. Some have asked, but don't all lives matter? Of course they do. But in the history of this country, no one has ever suggested that white lives don't matter. In contrast, we're a country founded on the concept that Black lives don't matter, and this racist idea has continued to plague us. But in the past month, we've watched a flowering in the streets of big cities and small towns across the country, a new willingness to recognize the wrongs of the past and present, a willingness to say loud and clear that yes, Black lives matter. We may or may not be out in the street with signs and shouts during this pandemic, but now we have the opportunity to support this work directly through the Black Lives Matter organization. There are 2 ways to donate. You can make a donation directly to Black Lives Matter, and I'll put the link in the chat box in just a moment. And that way you can be added to their email list to get news directly from them. Or if you prefer, you can text your donation to Chalice and we will forward the donations in a lump sum from the congregation. So to indicate your donation is for this special offering, you'll text your dollar amount and the word justice. And you'll see that in just a moment when I bring up the next screen. This is our monthly justice collection. I hope you will give generously. please join in dedicating our offering with words of affirmation. When all the people of the world love, then the strong will not overpower the weak, the many will not oppress the few, the wealthy will not mock the poor, the honored will not disdain the humble, the cunning will not deceive the innocent. This will be our world when all the people love. For our interlude this morning, we have a special piece of music. Last August, Bob Campbell was going to play this piece, The Swan, at the memorial service for our congregant S. Gaunt, and then was unable to because of timing. So we are blessed to have this music as part of our service this morning.
I know from experience that there is an incredible liberation and empowerment in admitting and facing your own vulnerability with fearlessness. Just as you had made an analogy, ma'am, of the armor. I mean, it's exactly what it is. You were spending so much energy to carry around all this armor to protect yourself from the rest of the world and not admit you have vulnerability. An analogy I use I'm kind of a water baby, and I love being in the water. If you can imagine treading water while holding 2 cinder blocks in your hand, like you're just barely above water. Every ounce of energy that you possibly have to keep yourself able to breathe, because you're holding the cinder blocks, and then you just let go of them. And they sink, and all of a sudden, wow, this is much easier now. This is amazing. But you don't understand that you can just let go of the cinder blocks at any time. And that's kind of the nature of our human experience. We put so much energy into crafting this armor and then carrying it around and holding on to these cinder blocks when we don't have to. It's just absolutely unnecessary. And once that finally clicks for you, it's like, wow, I don't have to do this anymore. It takes you to another level of experience, another level of living life and of interacting with your fellow human beings. So it's incredibly important to face your vulnerabilities and to understand them and admit them. And beautifully, once you do that, they don't seem to be as big of a vulnerability as they always were. When you just open your heart to the world and say, yeah, it's going to hurt. Bring it on. This is life. This is how we live it. Now all of a sudden life takes another meaning.
Our closing hymn is Siyahamba, a South African freedom song. We will be singing the words in English today. Please join in singing.
We are marching in the light of God. 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 We are marching, oh, we are marching in the light of God. We are marching, oh, we are marching in the light of God. We are singing 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 in the light of God. We are singing, oh, we are singing in the light of God. We are singing, oh, we are singing in the light of God. We are dancing 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 in the light of God. We are dancing, oh, we are dancing in the light of God. We are dancing, oh, we are dancing in the light of God. We are walking 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 in the light of God. We are walking, oh, we are walking in the light of God. We are walking, oh, we are walking in the light of God.
Our closing words come from Maya Angelou. Let us live so we do not regret years of inertia and ignorance. So when we die, we can say all of our energy was dedicated to the noble liberation of the human mind and spirit, beginning with my own. May it be so. Amen and blessed be. A quick word about next Sunday morning. our General Assembly, nationwide General Assembly, starts this coming Wednesday, and UUs around the country will be gathered together Sunday morning to watch the same worship together, the same Sunday morning worship. So you're invited to log on here, just like always, and we'll watch it together with thousands of Unitarian Universalists across the country. And you're invited to close our time together by singing the well and then joining us for coffee hour afterwards, and we'll post the link in the chat box.